Hey guys, welcome back to the Speaker's Edge podcast. This is the podcast designated to help you learn from some of the world's very best communicators so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you can learn how to inspire your audience by mastering your message every time you speak. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about who is the most important person in the room every time you speak. No matter who you're speaking to, who is the most important person in the room? And I'll give you a clue. It's not you. It's not you, it's the audience, isn't it? It's the audience, because it's always all about the audience. Always about the audience. And so in this episode, we're going to look at how really understanding who's in your audience really sets you up to win every time you speak. Every time you speak. Now, when you stop and think about it, there's a number of pitfalls which actually, when we think about it together, they're fairly obvious. They're easy to understand. Because when most people are asked to speak in front of an audience, their first thought really is, well, am I going to do a good job? Are they going to like me? Are they going to accept me? Am I going to be negatively evaluated? Or will they kind of see me as an equal? Will they see me as worthy? What am I going to say? How will I remember what I'm going to say? What will I do if I forget what I'm going to say? All of these things are things that we think about. But this is all about you if you think about it. This is all about you, the speaker. It's I, me. It's all about what you want to get from the audience, what you want to take from them, rather than what you can give to the audience, how you can serve them. Now, if you want to make progress quickly in anything, try to focus on the most important things, because you only got a certain amount of time. We all get 24 hours a day. It's not having more time. It's about using it effectively, isn't it? And the people that seem to be most successful use their time most effectively. And most effectively really means they're focusing on the most important things, not the least important things. In fact, Emerson said, the things that matter most must never be at the mercy of the things that matter least. So we need to be able to determine what's more important than what's less important and make sure that we're focusing on the right things. Otherwise, we can be spending a great deal of energy, a great deal of time, and not making very much progress. I'll give you a simple example of this. This was like, I don't know, about over 10 years ago when we lived in England. I decided that I wanted to get good at swimming because I always admired those people that could like power up and down the lanes doing front crawl, freestyle. And it looks kind of effortless and strong and like, I want to be able to do that. So I decided I was going to get swimming lessons. First lesson with my swimming instructor, he said, jump in the pool and show me what you can do. So I jumped in and like up and down 4 lengths, and I gave it everything I could. I got out the pool and I was exhausted. And he's like, well, you certainly put everything into that, didn't you? And I said, yeah. He said, that's not a good thing. I said, oh, why is that not a good thing? He says, well, like when you look at the best swimmers in the world, and even people, good swimmers, they don't do that. They're not like splashing around all over the place, giving it everything that they've got. They're much more graceful than that. And I said, but, if I want to swim faster, of course, I need to be stronger and I need to be fitter. And he said, no, you don't. You're not going to get anywhere like that. You're not going to meet your goals like that. And I'm like, of course I am. If I can pull harder through the water and I'm fitter and I can do it for longer, then I'm going to be a faster swimmer. I'm going to be, I'm going to be a better swimmer. He says, you're not. You could double the power and get very, very little increase in your speed. But if you just improve your drag in the water, if you're more efficient in the water, less water resistance, then you don't need to increase your power. In fact, you could reduce your power and you'll go much faster with much less effort. Like, what? He said, look, when you see the best swimmers, they kind of like sit on top of the water, they're flat to the water, and they move effortlessly through the water. Very little drag. He said, you're going through like at 45 degrees, your feet are flailing around all over the place, practically dragging on the floor. There's so much resistance. It doesn't matter how much power you've got. You're not going to swim that much faster unless you can improve your drag in the water. So he said, it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. Now, for me, I enjoyed weight training. I enjoyed going to the gym. I enjoyed kind of being fit. And so the answer for me was to be stronger and fitter, and then I'll be able to swim better. But it just wasn't true. It wasn't true. I was focusing in the wrong areas. So I could exhaust myself and get next to no improvement. So when it comes down to speaking, how can we improve our effectiveness as a speaker? Well, by focusing in the right areas. It's about prioritizing, isn't it? John says the quickest way to make progress in anything is prioritizing your time. Ask yourself this great question. What's the best use of my time right now? What's the best use of my time right now? So when it comes to speaking, there's probably some things we enjoy, there's some things that we're indifferent about, and there's some things that we don't enjoy. That shouldn't determine what we do. We should work on what are the most important things. What's the best use of my time right now? Now, in the last episode, we talked about developing unshakable self-confidence. We talked about overcoming fear. If fear is stopping you from even beginning the process of starting as a speaker, then that's where you want to start. After that, the next most important thing you can do is think about who's in the audience and how you can help them. That's the best use of your time. Understanding who's in the audience, how you can connect with them, how you can communicate with them, and how you can influence them. Because the audience is, a little bit judgy. They're not just going to open up and let you in straight away. You need to earn the right to influence them. And they're distracted by all kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that we can kind of grab their attention, hold their attention. And that's going to be because we can help them and they see that we can help them. So to help us get better at understanding who's in the audience and how we can better help them, how we can better serve them, how we can better add value to them, then we're going to go through 6 steps that help you tailor your message to your audience so that you've got a much better chance of connecting, communicating, and influencing them. The first step, step number 1, we've talked about this a little bit already, is realizing it's not about you, the speaker. It's not about you. Aristotle, years ago, he talked about the 3 kind of keys to effective communication: the character of the speaker, the logic of the reasoning of the message, and then the emotional receptivity of the audience. So speaker, message, audience. Which one of those 3 is the most important? Of course, the audience, the audience. Why? Because who decides how well you did after you finished? The audience. It's not about you saying it. It's not about you saying, oh, yeah, I think that went pretty well. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I enjoyed that. Therefore, it was a success. If everyone else was like, what in the world was that about? Who is that guy? That doesn't help them at all, does it? They decide how well you did. So obviously, they're the most important person in the room. Obviously, it's about them. It's not about how you feel. Oh, I don't mind standing up in front of an audience. I'm confident in front of an audience. Well, great. But it's not about that. It's about how they feel. It's not what you think. It's what they think. It's how you can help them. So the first step really is to realize if you're the speaker, you're the communicator, it's not about you. John Maxwell says, get over yourself. Get over yourself. Stop worrying about whether or not you look good in front of the audience. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, I don't worry about what I look like in front of the audience. I don't worry about those sorts of things. Well, let's just do a quick test, shall we? When you see a group photo, what's the first thing that you do? You don't lie, you look for yourself in that photo. And if it's a good picture of you, this is a great photo, this is a great photo. And if it's a bad picture of you, oh, that's not very good, you don't like it. We're all the same, aren't we? We all look for us and then to see whether or not we look good in that picture. So it's an easy mistake to think about ourselves when we're talking about communicating with the audience. We're the speaker with a message for the audience. So we're the ones standing up and speaking. So of course it's about us. And we are the center of our own universe anyway, aren't we? So it's like, of course I'm going to think about me. Of course I'm thinking about if I'm going to do a good job. Can I impress them? Am I going to look good? Of course I'm thinking about these. It may be unconscious. And I'm not singling you out. We all do this initially until you go through the process of thinking about these things. It's not about us. It's not about me, the speaker. Then we think about the message. What am I going to say? Will I be able to remember it? Will I forget it? How can I impress them with my successes so that I look good? It's not about looking good. Will they like me, accept me? Are they going to judge me? All of these things. It comes from a good place, I think. We want to over-deliver. We want to serve the people that we're speaking to. Sometimes it comes from a place of, a bit of imposter syndrome. Who am I to speak to this audience? I need to really overcompensate. I need to really over-deliver so that they can see that I can help them. But really, that's all about us. It's about us, and it's not about us. It's about the audience. Now, again, you might be thinking, well, how can you say it's not about me? I'm the one standing up in front of these people feeling uncomfortable. Of course it's about me. It's not about you. It is you, but it's through you for them. So it's not primarily about what you can get. It's about what you can give. So it's coming through you for them. You're trying to help them. So through you, but for them. You're not there for you. If you think about it, you already know this. Whatever you're going to say, you already know. So of course you're not there for them. You're there for you. You're there for them. So your goal is to add value to the audience. Your primary goal is to add value to the audience. So it's not about you, because step 2, your job is to add value to them, to the audience. So we want to focus on what you can give and not what you can get. Now, when you think about this, you think about selling as an example. If you think about selling as you getting commission, then that's about you. If you think about selling as a service that you're doing for them, something you do for them and not to them, then that's about adding value to them, isn't it? Influence as a service to help them. Giving info so that they're fully informed as a service. They can make a buying decision with all of the information. That's a service. My friend Ed DeCosta used to say that relationship selling is about being like a trusted consultant, so that you're a team. So it's not us and them. It's not us trying to sell them. It's like us trying to work out what the best solution is for you. So you're a trusted consultant. You see how that removes the us and them barrier? That's so clever, so clever. So we want to help them primarily, and then we're going to get stuff from it, but that's secondary. Our focus is on how can we help them. I know you've heard Zig Ziglar's quote, if you can help enough people get what they want, then you can have whatever you want, as long as you help them get what they want first. The byproduct is going to be what you want. I think a great test when we're talking about selling is, would you sell your product to your family, to your loved ones? What would you recommend they do? I'm a speaker and a speaker trainer, and if anyone in my family or anyone I know or love or care about wants speaker training, I'm the best person to help them. I'm absolutely convinced of that. No one will do. I know what I can do. I know how hard I'll try. I know how important it is to me. Been at it a long time, and I've got better and better and better. I started out okay, but I've got better and better and better over the last 20 years. And so I know what I can do for them. Now, if I was, and I'll charge them for it because I know what I can do for them. But if I was thinking, Amelie, my daughter, if you really want to get good, I can't really help you. You go to Dave down the road. My prices are too high, and I'm not that good. I'm average. He's really, really good, and his prices are more reasonable. You get much better value from him. You shouldn't be selling if that's what you think. So would you sell it to your loved ones? I think that's a great test. A great test. So it's about service. It's about adding value to the audience. And we must make sure that we keep that in mind. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So we can't drift off of that focus. So we have to know who's in the audience. We have to be able to help them. That's the big idea. Who's in the audience? That's our target, adding value to them. You can't hit a target that you can't see or you're not aware of course, can you? Other than, 1 in a million fluke or luck. So we need to know what the target is we're trying to hit. The target we're trying to hit is helping the audience, adding value to the audience. That's why it's not about us. It's about the audience. If you think it is about you, you're probably thinking more about what you can get from the situation rather than what you can give to the audience, how you can serve them. So it's a shift. It's a shift, and it changes everything. We talked about fear in the last episode. And when you think about adding value to your audience and not about, what will they think of me, you take your attention off of yourself and put it on the audience, you forget about yourself. You become much less self-conscious when you're other conscious. I remember standing at a 3-day event I was speaking at. I'd been on my feet for 3 days, long days, early in the morning till 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night sometimes, and there's a line of people coming up and asking questions, and my feet are killing me. And this person walks up, and I'm like, I just want to use the restroom. I want to get a mint. I want something to drink. I need something to eat. And there's, no kind of break from, different people who are all excited. And so you can't kind of say, sorry, I got to go. You're there for them. But I'm thinking about my feet. And then this person came up to talk to me. And while he was asking his question, I kind of looked in his eyes and I started thinking to myself, how can I help you in this moment? How can I help you? How can I serve you? And so I started thinking about that, and we had a great conversation, and off he went, and the next person came along, and I said the same thing. How can I help you? How can I help you? And the next couple of hours flew by. I didn't even realize, I completely forgot about my feet. I completely forgot about being tired, hungry. All of those things, because I wasn't thinking about me, I was thinking about how I could help them. It was kind of magical. It really was. Another example of this, my wife Susan and I were doing a ropes course years ago, and we were about 60 feet up, and we'd gone across this challenge, and we were kind of holding on to each other and then just shuffling along these wires to get to the next station. We got there, we're like holding on to the pillars. It's like, oh my goodness, and looking down at the floor, this is terrifying. And then behind us was Monique coming across, and she was really struggling. And she was wobbling, and she was really struggling to stay on the wire. She was running out of energy. And so we started encouraging her. We're like, come on, Monique, you can do it. You're there, nearly there. Keep going, keep going. And we encouraged her for 90 seconds, a couple of minutes that it took for her to finally get across. And she climbed up, and we hugged her and we said, well done, that was great. And I turned around and looked at Susan, and we're like high-fiving each other. And I realized that we'd completely forgot to hold on. In all that time, we were safe because we had a harness on, but we had that on all the time. You still you feel like you need to hold on to something because you're scared. But when you stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about others, you forget yourself. And we'd let go, and we were more focused on encouraging Monique than we were on holding on. So when we focus on others, everything changes. So helping other people, helping the audience, serving the audience, that's one of those big rocks that we've got to get in place. And it's so important with speaking. Like I said, if fear is stopping you, you've got to deal with that to some extent so that you can at least move through the process. But after that, the big rock that you've got to get in place is the audience. Who are they? And how can you add value to them? How can you add value to them? So it's all about the audience, but don't panic. There's still plenty in it for you. Just because it's all about the audience, it doesn't mean that you're not going to benefit. You are. Just because it's all about the audience, it doesn't mean that you're not going to share stories about yourself. You are, but you're sharing them for them, not for you. They're your stories, but you're sharing them to help them, for them, not for you. And it doesn't mean that you can't look good in your stories either, just because it's about serving them. Often you don't want to come across as the hero because it gets in the way. So it's okay if you look good in a story as a byproduct when your main goal is to help them. But you might want to tone it down a little bit, just because it's easier for them to relate to you if that's the case. Your primary job, remember, is to add value to the audience. Now, if you are going to add value to the audience, then you need to know who's in the audience, and you need to know something about them, of course. So step 3, who is in the audience? Who's in the audience? Of course, it helps to understand something about them. But I think, first of all, let's just understand that when we say the audience, it could be one person or it could be 10,000 people. It doesn't matter. An audience is a concept. An audience is a concept. An intellectual construct, if you like, this idea of an audience. It's not really a thing. The thing is the individual sat in the audience and you're connecting with them, one human being to another. So when we say, it's all about adding value to the audience, it's about adding value to each individual. So then when we say, well, who's the most important person in the room? Then it's not you, the speaker. It's every single individual in the audience, individually, one-to-one. Do you see that? We're emotional beings and we connect one human being to another. So the most important person in the room is every one of those. Les Brown kind of captures this when he says within an audience, there's audiences within audiences because it's made up of individuals. So there's different subgroups and different individuals within the audience. We're trying to connect with them one-to-one. In order to do that, to connect and communicate and influence with them, we need to know something about them. How can we find out something about who is in the audience? Well, we can ask the person that invited us to speak. We can ask our sponsor, who's in the audience? Are they C-suite executives? Are they leaders? Are they employees? Is it a mix? Are they customers or suppliers, shareholders maybe? Is it one company made up of different departments, or is it an association maybe, or a public event where it's made up of all kinds of different people? Have they been told by their boss they have to be there? Are they like hostages? Or have they paid their own money because they want to be there? Big difference between the two. You might want to ask if you can speak to some of the people who are going to be there if it's an organization. Now, Bonnie St. John, the Paralympian, she said that if you're going to speak to some people from the company to get a feel for, who's in the audience, she said the company is going to want to give you their best employees, their best leaders, people in management. And she said, if you only speak to management when you speak to in your presentation to the company, you sound like management, which is not going to help you connect with everyone else. So she said, it's great that they're going to give you the best people, speak to them, but also ask to speak to some of the individuals so that you get an idea of those audiences within the audiences, and then you don't sound like management. That's really good, isn't it? Really good. So you might want to understand from them what success looks like. What do they need? What do they want? How can you help them? You might want to find out something about the company and the struggles that they're facing, the industry or the team that you're going to be speaking to. It doesn't matter if you've done this presentation 100 times before, 500 times before, 1,000 times before. You still need to think about who's in the audience, because there might be some subtle changes. You might only need to change 1 or 2%, but that 1 or 2% makes an exponential difference in the impact you have if you tailor it for that particular audience as best as you can. You may have heard of Russell Conwell, who had that the talk Acres of Diamonds. We haven't got time to go through it now, but basically he gave that speech years ago. He gave it about 5,000 times. And what he would do when he was going into a town to deliver this speech is he would go to the barbers. He'd go to the local diner, he'd go to the cinema, he'd go in the shops, he'd talk to people, and he'd find out just a few little things that he could that would help him shape that talk that he'd given thousands and thousands of times before, and make it personalized, tailored just for them. He's only changing a really little bit, but it makes an enormous difference. So quick recap then. Step 1, realize it's not about you. Step 2, realize that your job is to add value to the audience. Step 3, you need to understand who's in the audience to give yourself the best chance of doing that. And then step 4, understand what problem, typically it's a business problem, what problem do they have that you're going to solve for them. If you can understand what the problem is, of course, you've got a much better job of solving it. If you can solve problems, there's always going to be a need for people who can solve business problems. So try and work out, where are they stuck? Where are they stuck? What obstacles are they facing? What questions do they have maybe before they can move forwards? What problems do they have? And do they accept they have the problems? If they've got a problem and you can see they've got a problem and everyone else can see a problem, but they don't see that they've got a problem, they don't care about your solution because it's not relevant to them, because they don't see that they've got the problem. They've got to accept that they have that problem for then the solution to be relevant to them. I'll give you a simple example of this. Paul Hutsey, years ago, we were business partners in a program, and he would talk about his time selling life insurance years before this. And he'd say, if you go and knock on a door and say, would you like to buy some life insurance? Most people will say, no thanks, not interested. And then you kind of engage them in a conversation, if you can, and find out a little bit about them, then maybe you can get them to see that they do actually have a problem that life insurance will solve. So I'll say, well, this is a lovely house. Oh, thank you very much. You married? Yeah, married. You got kids? Yeah, we've got 2 kids. Married, lovely house. He said, do you have a lot of money in savings? He said, no. You have a mortgage on the house? Yeah, we have a mortgage. Right, okay. God forbid anything should happen to you. Did your wife work? No, your wife did. Okay, so God forbid anything should happen to you. But if it did, would your wife be able to pay off the mortgage, or would she get a job? How would she pay the mortgage? Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, she got rich parents that would kind of swoop in and look after her? No, I don't think so. How would she stay in the house then? What? So she'd have to sell the house? And so then you realize, like, well, if the worst thing happens, do you realize that you can make all those problems go away for a relatively small monthly payment that is going to be the best decision you've ever made if, God forbid, anything does happen? So at least she doesn't need to worry about money with everything else that's going on and all the turmoil. The kids can stay in the same school, live in the same house as they deal with things. Suddenly then, it's like, okay, tell me about the premium, because you realize you have a problem that you didn't realize you had before. It's the same if you say to someone, do you want to buy some coaching? You know, probably, no thanks. Do you want to buy some leadership training? No, I don't need leadership training. But if you can talk to them about, what challenges are you facing? Well, we have a lot of staff turnover. We just can't get enough of the right people and hold on to enough of the right people. Well, do you realize that, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, people don't leave the organization. They leave the relationships in the organization. Most people that leave are unhappy with their relationship with their line manager. So it's not that you've got a problem with turnover, you've got a leadership problem. And again, this is something that you can solve. The leadership training is what you need. So you haven't got a staff turnover problem, you've got a leadership problem. That's solvable. Now maybe they're open to leadership training. So thinking about this, thinking about maybe what they've tried before, thinking about the challenges they're facing, challenges the industry faces, the economy, maybe their company or their department, maybe them generally as human beings, what challenges are human beings facing at the moment, or them specifically. The more you can find out about where they're stuck, the better chance you have of working out how you can add value to them, how you can really help them. So step 5 then, how can you help them? And you've got a much better chance of being able to help them if you can find where they're stuck. What problem, not all of their problems, but what problem can you solve for them? If you focus on that, then you're going to be able to help them. So John says, stop answering questions no one is asking. Stop answering questions no one is asking. So we don't want to just kind of give good answers when we're not sure if they have that question. This is a similar to what we were talking about before, isn't it? Stop answering questions no one's asking. Les Brown says, don't let what you want to say get in the way of what the audience needs to hear. You see how if we've got some good content, we'd stand up and share it, we think that we're helping. But if they don't have those problems, or they don't realize they have those problems, or they've got other problems, we're not helping them at all. We might feel like we've done a good job, got through it, remembered all my lines, but we haven't helped them at all. So don't let what you want to say get in the way of what the audience needs to hear. We've got to focus on adding value to them, and that means that we can provide a solution that is going to add value to them if we understand where they're stuck and what their problem is. So we work out who they are, where they're stuck, what they might need. That becomes our solution. That's the benefit that we're going to provide for them. So if you talk 75% of the time about their problems and then 25% about your solution, they're going to see then that you can help them. My friend Jim Edwards says, what a thing does is much more powerful and persuasive than what it is. If you describe your training, then that's one thing. If you tell them the transformation that your training will do for them, that's something else. So the service delivery of how you deliver a product is very different from the transformation the product provides. I know you've heard people say people don't buy drill bits, they buy holes in the wall. That's a kind of simple way of summing it up, isn't it? They're not actually, they don't care what color the drill bits are or what they're made of or any of those things. It's like, will it put a hole in the wall so that I can put that shelf up and my wife can stop bothering me? So if you think about this, then it causes you to focus on how is your audience better off at the end when you've finished? How are they better off at the end? That causes you to focus on the transformation you're providing. So you don't want to be a jack of all trades. You want to be an expert in a certain area. An expert in a certain area. Think about John Maxwell as an example. He's a leadership expert, isn't he? Les Brown is a mindset expert. Seth Godin's a marketing guru. These people are expert. Now, they're all expert speakers. They're all great speakers, but first and foremost, they're providing value in those areas because that's how they add value to their audience. So finally then, step 6, realize that you're responsible to your audience. You're not responsible for them. You're responsible to your audience. You're not responsible for them. It's your responsibility to do your best. Just like with change, really we're responsible for the effort, not necessarily the result. Very often we can't control the result. If you're selling, you can control how many people you ask to buy. You can't control directly whether or not they're actually going to buy. There's too many other variables. So you do the bit. You focus on the bit you can do. Ask people to buy, get good at that process, get good at delivering the product, and that's all you can do. You're responsible for the effort and not the result. Similarly, you're responsible to the audience, but you're not responsible for them. You can't make them change. So you just got to do your best. And I think it's fun actually to think of the audience in 3 different groups. You've probably heard, you're looking out at the audience you want to talk to the light bulbs. But I think of the light bulbs as golden retrievers. You're all familiar with golden retrievers. They're very friendly, very loving, and very accepting. Always delighted to see you. You can't put a foot wrong with a golden retriever. So at one end, we've got golden retrievers, and there'll be some of those in the audience who, whatever you say, they're very encouraging. They're your biggest cheerleaders. They're just loving it, and they just want you to be the best you possibly can be. And as far as they're concerned, you are doing a great job. But then the other end of the spectrum, you've got the German Shepherds. They're much more judgy. They're not easily to impress. It doesn't matter what you do. They're always going to be suspicious, and they don't like you. They're not there for you. You're not there for them. You're there for the others. So you've got the golden retrievers on one end, you've got the German Shepherds on the other end, and then in the middle, you've got the beagles. They could go one way or the other. So you're going to try and win over the beagles and talk to the golden retrievers, and don't let the German Shepherds put you off. That's most audiences, isn't it? And anyway, there's always another audience. So you're going to do your best. You're going to do your best. You're not responsible for what happens. You're responsible for your effort to do your best, to work hard, to prepare, to over-prepare, to do your best. But then there'll always be another audience, and you'll keep getting better. Everyone keeps getting better. I'll just share one quick story that illustrates this point very, very well. Our friend Teresa Scanlon was Miss America 2011, and she was also the MC for a number of years at the International Maxwell Conference. And she asked me to help her put together a story at one point, so that each time she got up to speak over the 3 days where she would appear multiple times each day, her story would gradually come out. And so we worked on it each week for a good number of weeks. And it's a fascinating story because she said what most people don't realize, when she won Miss America, she was 17 years old. 17 years old. And she said, what you don't realize is when you win Miss America, it's great that you've won, but the next day you're on a 1-year speaking tour. The next day, unprepared, uncoached, you're with your manager in a taxi off to the first event. She said, I'm sitting in the taxi, shell-shocked, going to speak to this audience that I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what I was going to say. And my manager was kind of going through her notes, and she said, they want you to speak for about 40 minutes. She's like, 40 minutes? What am I going to speak on? And she said, oh, just speak about your values. Just speak about your values. You'll be fine. And she's like, I'm not even sure I know what my values are, let alone talking to young girls who are looking up to me and show. So she said she got there and it was absolutely awful. It was so cringy. It was a disaster. She came out feeling so bad, but she didn't have any time to worry about it or stress because she was in a taxi on her way to the next event, shoved in front of another audience multiple times a day. And on and on and on. She said it was so bad, but I never had any time to worry because there was always another one. There was always another audience. And after about 6 weeks, I started making progress. And then after a few months, I started getting good. At the end of that year, I'd spoken over 300 times, and I was really feeling confident. The next 2 years, I was booking myself. I worked even harder. The first 3 years she was speaking, she spoke over 1,000 times. Now she knew that she was not cut out as a speaker. She knew that she couldn't do it. She was terrified of the thought and she didn't want to do it. But the reason that she developed and grew is because she was forced out of her comfort zone. She was shoved in front of the audiences one after another, and she gradually got better and better and better. And today, she is a phenomenal, phenomenal speaker. She really is. She proved to herself something she was convinced was not true, that she could do it if she tried. And not only could she do it, she could do it really, really well by sticking at that process. And so can you. So can you. You keep moving forwards, then you'll keep growing. So in this episode then, we talked about 6 steps that help you get that clarity around who's in the audience and how you can help them. Step number 1, realizing it's not about you. Step number 2, realizing that your job is to add value to the audience. Step number 3, in order to do that, you need to know who is in the audience. Step number 4, you need to understand what problem they have that you can solve for them. Step number 5, then you can think about your solution and how you're going to help them. And step number 6, don't forget, don't beat yourself up. Don't take on responsibility for things that are not your responsibility, that you can do nothing about. You're not responsible for the audience. You're responsible to them to do your best. You're not responsible for them. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about what John Maxwell says is the most important idea by far when it comes to communicating. We're going to talk about connecting with your audience, how you can get them to feel like they know, like, and trust you so that you can influence them. Don't forget to download from the last episode the roadmap. You can go to maxwellleadership.com/The Speaker's Edge, download the roadmap, follow those simple steps, and you'll be able to master your message and inspire your audience. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. God bless.